Everyone, and welcome back to the Journal of a Huntsman. I hope you're all doing well and getting through the day. If you're new to this channel, thank you for checking it out. This is the new podcast mostly focused on philosophy, culture, lifestyle, wellness, and also masculinity. I want to do my best to bring meaningful content to anyone who checks this out and offer some kind of perspective or voice that may be helpful. Now, before I get into the video, of course, I have 3 things to say. To everyone that's listening to this podcast, you are loved, you're seen, and you're appreciated. I feel like it's still a very important thing of the show to remind anyone listening of those 3 things. It's such a small side note, but so valuable in my opinion. So getting right into the episode today, I'm going to be talking about trauma and some ways we may be able to handle and heal from it. Because whether we like it or not, the world is becoming a more and more interconnected place. And we're seeing things that make us feel traumatized. It's difficult. We've gone from people opening a newspaper and seeing images of terrible events on the front page, then to images being broadcast on the TV, and now in 2023, we're constantly flooded with so much news, media, and opinions on everything, some of the worst things and the best things, that there's no time to digest any of it. As the internet and growing social era has become more and more pronounced, I know that we typically focus on the benefits that it brings. Access to information and communication. We're able to learn so much today that is honestly incredible. I remember when my teachers first introduced me to computers. I was in elementary school. They took us to the computer lab. It was one of my favorite places to go to because it felt so advanced and new. Learning how to access the internet and surf the web was awesome. As a kid, I just wanted to play computer games and have fun with my friends. Yet, as I grew up, I started figuring out the ability to learn more and more, which, let me realize something, that the internet can also be very terrible. And I don't say that lightly because this is a really nuanced issue, but yes, the internet can be terrible. Because currently, we lack many safeguards and practices that would let us utilize it well. And so getting back to the point, how does this relate to trauma? Because media today shows people too much. And I'm talking about access to gruesome and gory images and videos that make you feel dead on the inside or just cold. Videos from school shootings or security footage of someone getting gunned down, attacked, or beaten. I think that from the millennial generation, there's been a constant access and showing of these types of media that it has caused many of us to become desensitized to the trauma. See, trauma can exist everywhere in the world, and it can affect anybody. It's not just in the images that we see, but it's rooted in what we experience. Soldiers can experience and get trauma when going to war and experiencing extreme violence when fighting. Children can experience trauma in their lives from an abusive parent or painful situation. Kids, adults, men, and women, trauma is a very human thing that is a part of our life cycle. Not to say that we all experience it, but I would say that we all can experience it. But how do we handle it? I think that's been one of those questions that I've heard the most in my life over the last 4 years when I've been at UCI. Talking about trauma and the way that we can handle it and heal from it. It can look different for everyone, and there are many ways people can cope with it. Avoidance, desensitization, catharsis, mindfulness, seeking support, or stoicism. There are so many ways that one can heal and try to better themselves after experiencing a traumatic situation. But choosing the right direction can be very difficult. I mean, when I was in high school and middle school, a lot of this wasn't being talked about still. The broader topic of mindfulness. And I'll use the word mindful because I think it generally captures the whole idea. And I heard something really good about mindfulness recently. It's not about thinking, but it's about experiencing. Learning how we can experience our emotions and our lives better and directing our focus. Now, I don't know how that sounded for all of you, but it hit for me. Because how I've always handled mindfulness and have thought about it is like a practice that encourages you to think about things. And that's what I've always done. I think about my emotions a lot and break them down so that I can identify and understand them. When I'm happy, I can identify that and also the reason as to why I'm happy. And it's the same thing when I'm either sad, angry, annoyed, or depressed. Mindfulness has always been about thinking to me, but I think that I've gotten it wrong. Thinking may help, but it may only be part of the solution, but it's not everything. Life is meant to be lived. That's the truth, set in stone in my opinion. Thinking about emotions all day really just takes away from our present. So I loved the conception of it where this professor said, it's not about thinking, but about experiencing. Where mindfulness is less about just thinking and more about learning how to experience ourselves in a more healthy and positive way. Dealing with trauma is a part of that. And it's a very necessary part of that, because if we don't deal with trauma in our lives, it will just sit and fester, and then it'll begin to create problems for us in other areas in our lives. Maybe in the way that we treat our family and friends, or maybe in how we treat ourselves, maybe in how we fear the idea of success, maybe how we self-sabotage relationships in our lives. It can vary greatly depending on the person, but the effects will generally be the same. If we don't deal with it or try to handle trauma in one area of our lives, then it may just pop up in another, and in a way that we least expect it. And all of this brings me right back to the point I was just making earlier. How can we change that? How can we deal with trauma? How can we teach ourselves to heal? Because especially today, I think that it's just necessary. I mean, we have all this access on the internet to information and videos and pictures, and technology is advancing at a scary pace. I mean, AI has really launched in the past few months, and it's been being talked about more and more recently. And the software and programs that are being developed today are they're mind-boggling. But it's also so terrifying to see. And so we need methods and techniques that let us learn to heal ourselves. Not just heal physically, but I'm talking about mentally and emotionally too. So today I have suggestions for those that are listening. One is something that I've gotten into over the past few months, and another one is something that I made for myself that I hope helps. And the first one is simple: therapy or counseling. I have to suggest this because it's truly one of those things that you can benefit from and learn a lot while doing. You'll be talking to a professional whose entire purpose is listening to whatever you're going through, then offering you perspective or advice. I mean, some of us may have that one friend that's like a therapist to us anyway. And I'm not saying to ditch your friendly Dr. Phil for someone new, but sometimes having a friend that'll listen to you, because sometimes having a friend that will listen and knows you, your past, your personality, and so on, that can be really helpful. But sometimes having someone who doesn't know all of that can also be helpful. A completely blank slate or a third-party perspective. Taking the chance to seek out therapy doesn't just need to happen when the world feels like it's crashing down around you. I think that's more of a false assumption. One of the common ideas around therapy is that you only get it when something is wrong. Either you saw something terrible or you're mentally depressed. But therapy can be useful throughout the year, throughout various parts of your life, so the lows and the highs. Talking to someone about the good things in your life or the bad things can all be beneficial. As adults especially, I believe it can help us because the outside perspective is just incredibly valuable. As we're trying to identify forms of trauma that we've experienced and methods to properly heal, therapists can give that to us. So yes, the first method is therapy, which I will always endorse for those going through a tough time. And the second method is a kind of offshoot of Stoicism. It has 4 steps to it. I started thinking about this last year, just the process that I go through when it comes to handling trauma and how it's changed from high school to the present. Breaking down how I've responded to trauma, not just react to it. This method is basically rooted in that choice. Deciding to respond instead of react. The difference between the two is that your reaction is rooted in your ego, but your response is rooted in yourself. So in truth, this is about trying to quiet the ego and then listen to the self instead of the reverse. So there are 4 steps to it. Here's the first. Step 1, feel your emotion. I can remember the first time that I heard news of a school shooting. I was in high school. And I can remember how stunned I felt and shocked I was at the news. Shocked in seeing the response that was taking place nationwide, and then hearing the whispers and conversations take place around me. All of it just seemed to warm my fear and give my fear something to build off of. I can remember the first time that I really understood what W.E.B. Du Bois meant by double consciousness. As I read a book in IB English, then I was rushed with emotions that I didn't fully understand. Anger, frustration, fear, confusion, and then a sense of emasculation. The question of, what kind of a man am I if I want to cry right now just from reading a few passages in a book? But the thing is, emotions are powerful things. And that power is a double-edged sword for us. The first thing we often want to do is react to them. We're angry, so we want to lash out. We're sad, so we want to isolate ourselves. We're hurt, and so we want to hurt others. Those are simple reactions, almost surface level. Another thing that I've noticed a lot is that we're scared of getting to the root of our emotions, scared of diving deep and encountering the sheer depth of our feelings. Which is why the first step of handling trauma for me has always been to feel my emotions. If you're hurt, it's okay to be hurt. You could feel that pain. If you're angry, it's okay to feel angry. If you're sad, feel that grief. Just because you are feeling the emotions doesn't mean you need to react to them. I encourage myself to feel emotions so meaningfully because it ties directly into the second step. Step 2, identify the roots of your feeling. So step 1 is to feel your emotions, then step 2 is to identify the root of your feeling. The two of them go hand in hand as a process, but let me get into why step 2 is important. Now, I mentioned that people are scared of death. In today's society, things move so fast and we're bombarded with so much stimulus and entertainment and information that to go deeper would require time and attention. And if we put that time and attention into one thing, then we might miss something else. And so we skim. We skim and we look toward the surface and we only observe the top layer, the surface layer. And we've gotten so comfortable with this idea, so when it comes to our feelings and emotions, we only look towards the surface and we reject the idea that the problems may be deeper. The root of what we're feeling may go beyond just the surface. Maybe it may go beyond just to how we're seeing things right now. See, the second step is about taking a dive into ourselves, looking for the truth that we might reject and may not want to hear, looking for the root that's popping up in our lives now as a weed. It's hard learning to identify the root of anything. Especially with people, this can feel more like trying to solve a puzzle. Have you ever seen those balls of yarn all tangled up together? Now you're supposed to try to figure out where it starts or ends? Yeah, looking for the root of our problems can often feel like that. But as you do it more and you become more honest with yourself and accepting of who you are, it can become easier. You start peeling back layers of that ball of yarn, untangling complex issues and emotions, noticing the beauty and the sophisticated nature of the yarn. As you untangle more and more layers and you start to dive deeper into yourself, that's when step 3 comes into play. Because that process can be difficult and it can be hard. And it can be scary when you're trying to do it for the first time or aren't sure if you're capable enough to see it through. And I'm here to tell you that I know it can be scary. I know it can be hard. I've been through that process before. Each of these steps are something that I've discovered, learned, and had to teach myself to master. All of them are important, but step 3 is personal. It's personal for the individual. It's personal for you. It's personal for the person. Step 3 is to not lose hope. Sometimes when we look at our problems, they can feel overwhelming, like literal mountains surrounding us and blocking out the light from the sky. They can make us feel as if we're drowning and losing air and power in our bodies. Diving deeper into yourself and searching for the root of whatever it is that you're feeling, it can bring you face to face with uncomfortable truths about yourself and who you are. Things you may have thought in passing but never really addressed, things you felt in the past and then just brushed off, or emotions that were never fully realized in yourself. These things can sometimes make you feel like there's no point in trying to heal, like it's just too hard to make it happen, which is why you can't lose hope. You have to believe that things can work out, and more than that, you have to believe in yourself. Believe in a part of yourself that can be better, that can be kinder, and can heal. Believe that things will be okay at the end of the day if you keep trying and taking a step forward, just one step at a time. Not losing hope may sound like a big step, but one thing that helped me was, it was a quote from an anime that I loved. Gurren Lagann. I still say this quote when I start doubting myself or don't feel personally capable enough. So let me set the scene for you right now. You and your brother grew up in a village underground and you're not related by blood, but you're still family. You're a miner, a digger, a person that's responsible for drilling holes in the ground to expand the size of the village, and one day you discover a key in the shape of a drill. This key unlocks a small robot. Now your brother encourages you to continually be a man and believe in yourself, but you can't seem to do it. You struggle to have faith in yourself and you see the potential that your brother sees in you. And you have this continual struggle until the moment that he tells you, if you can't believe in yourself, then don't. That's okay. Believe in me. Believe in the me that believes in you. That's all you need to do. I paraphrased the actual line in the show. In reality, the brother said, "Listen up, Simone. Don't believe in yourself. Believe in me. Believe in the Kamina that believes in you." That line, man, that line hit me like a bus. And it kind of opened my eyes and took some of the stress off my shoulders, honestly, for a lot of reasons. But the simplest was because it gave me a kind of excuse to believe in myself. And for someone that suffered with imposter syndrome for a while growing up, the idea that I should have confidence and believe in myself was always something that I struggled with. But that line gave me a chance to find hope again. Because even if I couldn't believe in myself, I could believe in the people around me. I could believe in my closest friends, the people who looked up to me, those that would talk about me with praise or just good words. Which leads me to step 4. Step 4 is to stake yourself in responsibility, accountability, and action. This last step is more about pointing yourself in the direction you want to go in, and understanding that the only person that can take you there is yourself. That's why responsibility is so important here. Being responsible for your own well-being, your own mental health, being responsible for you. But it's not just responsibility that is crucial for this step. I think sensibility is also important. Being able to take responsibility for yourself, but not also taking responsibility that supersedes yourself. Basically not taking on more than you can handle. Leaving the weight of the world for the world to handle and not carrying it on your back. So that is my path. It's been the path I've been building and walking for a few years now, as I've learned to handle and deal with trauma and pain in my own life. This may work for some people, but it may not work for others. Truthfully, I think my methods are a little difficult. They're rough, because they call for people to confront themselves. Step 2 and 3 are all about confronting what's within us. I mean, trauma is hard. It's painful, and sometimes can feel like it's almost unbearable to experience. And the thing about it is that it can shape us into who we are. But I don't think it's the trauma that does this. It's what we let the trauma do. The extent and range of how the trauma makes you react, and how we can have that range be small, or how we can have that range be large. And it just seeps into every part of our lives. My bad. Trauma exists as a part of life, though, because pain exists as a part of life. But pain can also be a beautiful thing, only if we let it. So when you're faced with trauma, or if you're facing trauma today, I hope that you could take something away from this video. Therapy is always an option to take when looking for support and a way to heal. And my method may work for you as well. 4 steps. Just 4 things to remember for yourself. Step 1, feel your emotions fully. Step 2, find the root of whatever it is you're feeling. Step 3, don't lose hope. And step 4, stake yourself in responsibility, accountability, action, and sensibility. This is a topic I'll probably revisit another time, but I hope those who are listening were able to take something away from this. Once again, you're loved, you're appreciated, and you're seen. I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you next time.